When Helen Westfield turned 68, her house became even quieter than she remembered. The sound of her late husband's boots no longer echoed through the hallway. The old grandfather clock in the corner of the living room kept ticking, faithfully marking the time in a home that had stopped moving forward years ago. She lived in the same blue-painted cottage nestled at the edge of the Oregon coast, where the mist rolled in every morning and clung to the windows like fragile memories. It was the house she and George had bought together after retiring. He had loved the ocean and she had loved him, so she learned to love it too. But the sea air now smelled more of salt and less of comfort. Helen's life was not tragic in the classic sense. There were no screaming arguments, no terrible betrayals, no lost fortunes. No, what she had endured was quieter. The slow erosion of dreams, the weight of unspoken words, and the unbearable silence that follows when someone walks out the door one day and simply doesn't return. George had died 5 years ago from a heart attack while walking alone on the beach. No warning, no goodbye. Just one long walk that never circled back. The Coast Guard had found his body washed up 3 days later. It was ruled natural causes, but to Helen it was cruel. They had unfinished conversations. Apologies never said. And in the stillness of their home, the absence screamed louder than any storm outside. Helen began her mornings with coffee at the kitchen table, staring at the empty seat across from her. Sometimes she spoke aloud to it, pretending he might respond. Other times she sat in silence, afraid to hear how hollow the house had become. Her children called on Sundays. They sent her pictures of the grandchildren she rarely saw, children who were growing up too fast, laughing into iPhone cameras. They asked her to move closer, to leave the coast behind and find a sunny condo near them in Phoenix. But the ocean held George's memory. And hers. One day a letter arrived. It was postmarked from San Diego, handwritten, no return address, just her name in a script she didn't recognize. Inside was a single sentence. "You don't know me, but I knew your husband." It hit like a gust of icy wind. She didn't know what to make of it. She clutched the paper with trembling hands and read the line over and over. What did it mean? Who would send such a thing? Helen tucked it away in her nightstand, but sleep evaded her. She lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling, retracing every step of George's life. Had he lived a second life? Was there more to him than the man she knew? Over the next week, curiosity turned into obsession. She began digging through their shared past. Photo albums, love letters from their youth, postcards, receipts. Nothing suggested another life, but doubt once planted grows fast in lonely soil. 2 weeks later, another envelope arrived. This time it was thicker. Inside was a photograph. Helen's heart stopped. It was George, 20 years younger, standing beside a woman Helen had never seen before. He was smiling. The woman was holding a baby. The letter inside read, "He told me he never stopped loving you." But he was torn. Tears welled in Helen's eyes. She didn't know if it was betrayal, heartbreak, or sheer confusion that overwhelmed her. She sat for hours in the living room, holding the photograph, replaying every moment she had shared with George. Was their love a lie? The days passed in slow motion. Helen started writing back, sending her own letters to the San Diego address, even without knowing if someone would receive them. She poured her confusion, her anger, her grief onto the pages. She didn't expect a reply. But one came. The woman's name was Clara. The baby had been George's son, born from an affair during a rough patch early in Helen and George's marriage. Clara never told George about the pregnancy until years later. He had met the boy once, just once, and then returned to Helen. "He chose you," Clara had written. "But he never forgot us. And he never stopped loving you." Helen folded the letter and held it against her chest. A part of her wanted to scream. Another part, perhaps the deeper, quieter one, understood. George was gone. Nothing would change that. But this new truth didn't have to rewrite their past. It simply added complexity to the man she had loved. He had been human, flawed, and perhaps more torn than she ever knew. In the weeks that followed, Helen didn't feel peace exactly. But she began painting again, something she hadn't done in years. She painted the coastline, the beach where George took his final steps, the woman she saw in the mirror now. Older, sadder, but still whole. She mailed one painting to Clara. A small note on the back. "Thank you for telling me. I loved him too." And for the first time in years, Helen felt something new blooming in her chest. Not joy, not closure, but the beginning of understanding. A softer kind of healing. She still sat at the same kitchen table each morning. But now, instead of just coffee, there were paints and brushes. She still spoke to George sometimes, but now it was different. She told him about the letters. About the boy. About how she forgave him, not because it was easy, but because it was hers to give. The house remained quiet. The waves still crashed against the shore. But something had shifted. He walked out and never came back. But she stayed. And she finally found her voice in the silence.